you got it? Okay. Yep, that's me. Okay. That is me. I'm here with IDEA, for those of you that don't know. Miles Rose, Mike Dunn, Christy May, a couple of other speakers from IDEA earlier today. I'm not going to go through our services. Business development is represented in full force here. If you want to know what we do, come talk to this guy afterwards. Okay, so the question, is it that simple? I had the phenomenal privilege a couple of months ago to visit Napa Valley, California, wine country. I certainly had my preconceived notions of what that experience was going to be. I fully expected to see well-to-do folks stumbling from one winery to the next, tasting phenomenal wine. I'm not a wino myself. I had the privilege of being invited to go, and I figured I'd go. I'd spend 4 days. I'd play the part. I'd swirl and sniff the wine and pretend I smelled something other than grapes. But it was a great trip, and there's something else about me that I should make perfectly clear. I'm an action item guy. I'm the guy at the end of the meeting. Everybody's getting up, ready to go. The meeting's already 15 minutes late. I'm the guy raising his hand, going, "Oh, what are our action items? What do we have to do that comes out of this meeting?" And out of this trip, I really was looking for what I would call action items, or lessons that I can apply and take back with me. QPR, it's quality price ratio. QPR drives the wine business. Okay, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's value. And if you're a winemaker, if you're a winery owner, QPR cannot be more important. It's the golden egg. It's the magic beans. And I just want to mention, I'm going to refer back to that a couple of times throughout this discussion. When I'm talking about the magic beans, that's not my reference. First of all, I'll get to where that comes from, or the golden egg. I'm talking about the fact that 20 years ago, and I wasn't in the business back then, but 20 years ago, we had magic beans in our business. It was called broadcast television. If you bought enough media space in broadcast television 20 years ago, now not everybody had the money to invest up front, but if you invested enough money in broadcast media, you were going to make a lot of money. And now I know people could screw it up, but that's the way I'm looking at the golden egg. And a lot of people are telling us social media is the golden egg. It's that simple. And so that's what I just wanted to look at that. But back to the QPR. If you're a wine owner, if you're a winemaker, every year when you're bottling this wine, you are praying that your QPR is high. Because if you're somebody like me that doesn't recognize brands of wine, you're going to go to the grocery store, you're going to go to a restaurant, you're going to be looking at a wine list, and you're going to want to know, hey, how's that wine rated? I know my price. I can't go above $50. I'm not going to spend that much money on wine. For my money, what's the highest value? And so that literally drives the wine business. In Napa, however, I represented a different consumer segment. I wasn't picking wine off a restaurant wine list. I wasn't shopping for wine at a grocery store. I was in Napa. I was going from winery to winery, and what I realized about this place was that what I originally perceived to be 10 little wineries on about 3 square miles of land is a literal endless road of ruthless competition. And the reason I say that is because these guys are all selling the exact same thing. It's not like a mall where you've got your clothes stores and your candy stores and your pretzel stores. This is a mall that all sell every store sells the exact same thing. It's an endless road of ruthless competition. And what these guys understood, and what I realized, was that QPR didn't drive the wine business for this consumer segment. People that were visiting Napa. Now, folks that are purchasing wine from a restaurant wine list or a grocery store shelf, that's the vast majority, and that's why I say that these guys really can rely on QPR as the golden egg that drives their business. But you have to look at this other consumer segment. These folks realize that. These winemakers realized that. And if any of you guys have been, you will see that the experience you have at each of these wineries is so different, is so diverse, it's ridiculous. You've got wineries where you literally go down into caves, and they say, oh, it's because the temperature is controlled down there. You've got lines of barrels in these caves. It's about experience. These guys realize, hey, we're in Napa. The guy next door to us is making wine in the exact same soil with the exact same weather. It's all great wine. If you buy wine from Napa, you're going to be fine. It's about experience for these guys. If you are a wine drinker, you know the big Napa brands, Cape Bread, Joseph Phelps. These guys can rely on their brands to an extent, but the experience that you get from them is you learn the process. You pass by other tour guides. You go through the fields. You taste the wine. You learn how to taste wine in a somewhat snobby way. I'm going to go ahead and give a quick plug for the winery that I came away from this trip remembering more than any other winery, and it's a winery called Fleury. If you ever get to go to Napa, visit this place. It's an aluminum-sided building on a tiny plot of land. Can't compete with Cape Bread and Joseph Phelps based on size or the strength of their brand. They don't compete on price point either. It's expensive. But they invest in the experience. You come away from that feeling guilty if you don't buy from these guys. If you go 15 minutes past your tasting, they're not going to kick you out the door. They're going to stay and they're going to talk to you because they realize the value of creating that relationship with you. And now, the point that I'm trying to make is that these winemakers and these winery owners realized that as a visitor of Napa Valley, I represented a different consumer segment than those guys up there buying wine from a restaurant cellar. You can't rely on QPR to talk to me. You've got to talk to me through experience. That's why I'm standing here talking about this little winery that I would be floored if any of you guys had heard of. So let's take that experience and kind of bring it back home. Normally, I don't like to use personal experience because everybody's personal experience can tend to be different. The reason I feel confident using personal experience in this discussion is because I feel pretty confident that the majority of the folks in this room can relate in some way. My grandma, I'll start by saying my grandfather died about 5 years ago, and she moved further away from our family to be kind of in a little retirement community. And we bought her a computer. She didn't even have a computer. We said, Nana, we want to be able to communicate with you more often. You know, we don't have time to pick up the phone and call you every day. We want to be able to communicate with you over email. Let me show you how this works. She sold that computer within a week of us purchasing it for her. And my assumption is she didn't get quite as much as we paid for it. But the point is, she wouldn't go there. She didn't care that was more efficient. Her response is, hey, if you want to talk to me, pick up the phone and call me. Okay, my dad. I went to lunch with my dad just a couple of weeks ago. My dad not only does not understand social media, and again, remember, I'm all over social media. I love it to death. I'm a huge proponent, and I totally believe in the long-lasting impact of social media. My dad mocks it. I don't understand this Twitter business. Why do I care what you're doing all day? How many times have you guys heard that? Okay? And so the point that I'm trying to make is I realize that this is two people and the personal experience of one guy. If you can't think of anybody in your life that would respond to you in that way, if you're trying to get them on Twitter, if you're trying to get them on Facebook, I'd be surprised. Now, I know the statistic. I know that the fastest growing age demographic of Facebook is women ages 55 to 65. That's hugely impactful and something that we need to pay attention to. But we also have to pay attention to the fact that if you want to talk to my dad, if you want to talk to my grandma, you better not be using social media. You better get more creative. You better be thinking of other ways to talk to him. If you want to talk to my dad, you better be using email marketing. I'll tell you that right now. He's all over email all day, every day. He doesn't get the social media piece. Now, we saw a lot of stats in this video, and for a lot of you guys that may kind of veer away from the personal experience and say, I need hard stats if you want me to believe something. Here's the way I think that we need to approach those stats. Now, first of all, I know that a lot of the stats in that video are probably incorrect altogether, and from what I've heard, they are. But let's assume for the sake of this discussion that the stats in that video were completely 100% accurate. 3 years ago, as I mentioned, MySpace made huge,